What if I told you that every thought you've ever had, every moment spent lost in your inner dialogue, wasn't really your voice? That the constant chatter in your mind isn't who you are, but a script you've been programmed to believe. Right now, your thoughts are shaping your reality without your consent, locking you into cycles of stress, doubt, and fear. But here's the hidden truth. Thinking isn't controlling. It's listening. And unless you uncover the power behind this realization, you'll stay stuck in a loop created by forces you don't even realize are at play. For centuries, mystics and philosophers have explored the nature of thought, secrets buried in ancient texts, truths hidden by systems that profit from your ignorance. What you're about to discover could disrupt the very foundation of how you see yourself. But be warned, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can click away now and stay in the illusion, or you can watch this to the end and step into a new kind of freedom. A freedom they don't want you to find. The choice is yours. Take a moment and listen. No, not to the sounds around you, but to the voice inside. What's it saying right now? Maybe it's judging this video, wondering where this is going. Maybe it's listing the things you need to do later, or replaying a memory from earlier today, whatever it's doing. Notice how it's always there, narrating your life. Now, here's the question. If you're the one listening to it, who's doing the thinking? This is the paradox most people never stop to question. When you're thinking, you're actually listening. Listening to what? To thoughts. A phenomenon that rises and falls within you, but isn't you. These thoughts are like a radio station that never stops broadcasting. The problem is, we rarely realize we have the power to change the channel or even turn the volume down. Most of the time, we're tuned in so closely that we forget there's a choice. We assume the voice is us, so we get caught in its stories, its fears, and its endless to-do lists. But what if you could take a step back and see it for what it really is? A stream of energy passing through your awareness. Here's the truth. Thoughts are not facts. They're not absolute truths. They're interpretations, echoes of past experiences, and projections about the future. Yet they have an incredible power over us, because we take them so seriously. Think about the last time you felt anxious or upset. Wasn't it because of a thought? Maybe about something that might happen, or something you wish had gone differently. That thought triggered an emotion, and suddenly it felt like your whole world was spinning out of control. But what if you could observe that thought instead of being consumed by it? What if you could listen without attaching to the story? Imagine your mind as a movie theater. The thoughts are the film playing on the screen, full of drama, action, and suspense. But here's the thing. You're not the movie. You're the audience. You're sitting in the seat, watching the story unfold. The problem arises when you forget this and start to believe you're actor in the film, caught up in the action and chaos. What would happen if you simply leaned back, took a deep breath, and remembered you're the observer, not the character? The voice in your head is a master storyteller, but its stories aren't always helpful. It loves to predict worst-case scenarios, replay embarrassing moments, and judge everything in sight. And while it might seem like this voice is trying to protect you, most of the time it's just creating noise. When you learn to listen without reacting, something incredible happens. The voice begins to lose its grip. You start to notice the space between you and the thought. And in that space lies your freedom. But still, now, let's go deeper. If you've ever tried meditating, you've probably noticed how quickly thoughts come rushing in the moment you sit still. It can feel frustrating, like you're failing. But here's the secret. Meditation isn't about stopping your thoughts. It's about seeing them for what they are, fleeting, impermanent, and ultimately harmless. When you sit and watch your thoughts without judgment, you're practicing one of the most profound skills you can ever learn. Detachment. You're training yourself to listen without identifying, to observe without reacting. Think of your thoughts as clouds in the sky. They come in all shapes and sizes, some light and fluffy, others dark and stormy. But no matter how big or small, they always pass. They can't stay forever because that's the nature of clouds. They move. And just like the sky, your awareness is vast and unchanging. It doesn't matter how many clouds drift through, the sky remains untouched. You are that sky. You are the awareness in which all thoughts arise and dissolve. The moment you realize this, everything changes. You begin to see that the voice in your head is not who you are. It's just a part of you, like a tool the mind uses to navigate the world. But you, the listener, are so much more. You're the quiet presence behind the voice, the stillness that notices the movement. And when you anchor yourself in this awareness, they're no longer swept away by every passing thought. Instead, you stand rooted, calm, and clear, no matter what storm is raging above. Let's pause here and reflect. How often do you identify with the voice in your head? How often do you let it dictate your mood, your decisions, your sense of self-worth? The truth is, most of us live as though the voice is in control, but it doesn't have to be that way. The next time you catch yourself caught in a mental spiral, stop and ask, who's listening? That simple question can create a shift, so it reminds you that you're the observer, not the observed. And in that moment of awareness, you step into a place of power, a place where you can choose not to engage with the thought, and instead let it pass. This isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a practice, a skill you can cultivate every day. It starts with noticing, with paying attention to the inner dialogue without judgment or resistance. It's not about silencing the voice, but understanding it, watching it, and ultimately realizing that it doesn't define you. Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind jumps from one thought to the next? It's like an overactive storyteller, constantly weaving narratives about what could go wrong, what went wrong before, and what you need to do to make it all right. But have you ever stopped to question who this storyteller is working for? Its intentions may feel protective, but more often than not, it creates more stress than solutions. And here's the key. The storyteller is not you. You're the listener, the one aware of the story being told. This shift in perspective is transformative. When you stop identifying with the mind's chatter, you begin to see it for what it is. A process. A tool, but not the essence of who you are. This doesn't mean you stop thinking altogether. It means you stop believing every thought as if it were the ultimate truth. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack full of stories. Every regret, every fear, every plan for the future. Now imagine setting that backpack down, even for a moment. That's what it feels like to detach from the voice in your head. A lightness, a freedom, a sense of peace you may not have realized was possible. Here's something remarkable to consider. Thoughts are like echoes in a canyon. They reflect the past, repeating patterns you've experienced over and over. These patterns can create habits, beliefs, and emotional responses, and before you know it, they form the lens through which you see the world. But just because a thought appears doesn't make it real. You've likely experienced this before. A worry that never came true, a fear that dissolved the moment you faced it, a judgment that turned out to be unfair. If you can question one thought, you can question them all, and when you do, you'll find that most thoughts are just noise, a soundtrack you don't have to dance to. Let's try something together. Close your eyes if you can, and take a deep breath. Notice the next thought that comes up. Don't try to stop it or push it away. Just notice it. Maybe it's a random memory, an image, or a to-do list item. Now, instead of getting lost in it, imagine placing that thought on a leaf, floating down a stream. Watch as the stream carries it away. Another thought will come, and you'll do the same. Place it on the next leaf and let it drift. This exercise isn't about controlling your thoughts. It's about realizing that they come and go on their own. You don't have to hold on to them. You don't have to let them define you. The truth is, the voice in your head is often a reflection of your conditioning, the experiences, beliefs, and messages you've absorbed throughout your life. These are the stories society tells us about who we should be, what we should want, and how we should behave. They're not inherently bad, but they're not inherently true either. Recognizing this gives you the power to rewrite the narrative. Instead of listening to a critical or fearful inner voice, you can cultivate a voice of compassion, encouragement, and curiosity. And, even more powerful, you can move beyond the need for any voice at all, resting in the quiet awareness beneath it. This awareness is the key to emotional freedom. When you're no longer identified with the thoughts in your mind, you create space to feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Think about it. Emotions are often triggered by thoughts. A worry thought creates anxiety. A regretful thought stirs up sadness. But when you see the thought for what it is, just a passing wave, you can feel the emotion fully, without getting stuck in it. It's like standing in the rain instead of fighting it. You get wet, but eventually the rain stops, and you're still here, unchanged at your core. Many people fear this process of observation because they think it means letting go of control. But the reality is quite the opposite. Trying to control every thought, every emotion, and every outcome is what creates suffering. Surrendering to the flow of life, allowing thoughts to come and go, emotions to rise and fall, is where true peace lies. It's not about giving up. It's about letting go of the need to force or resist. This is the freedom you've been seeking, and it's available to you right now. Imagine what your life could look like if you lived this way. If you could face challenges without the added weight of mental chatter. If you could experience joy without the fear of it ending. If you could move through your day with a sense of calm, no matter what arises. This isn't some far-off fantasy. It's a reality you can begin to create today, simply by listening without identifying. The voice in your head doesn't need to be silenced. It just needs to be seen for what it is, background noise, not the soundtrack of your soul. As you practice this, you'll notice something extraordinary. Moments of stillness will begin to emerge, even in the busiest days. These are the moments when you realize the mind has quieted, and all that's left is pure presence. You might feel it while watching a sunset, hearing a child laugh, or simply sitting in silence. These moments remind you of the truth. You are not the thoughts or the stories. You are the awareness behind them. And in this awareness, there is peace, there is freedom, there is you. Now let's take this idea even deeper. When you realize you are not your thoughts, a profound shift begins to happen. You start to notice the spaces between them, the quiet moments where no thoughts arise, just a calm, expansive awareness. These spaces are always present, but they're often drowned out by the mental noise. As you tune into them, you'll discover something remarkable. This stillness, this presence, is the essence of who you are. It's not something you create. It's something you uncover, like finding clear water beneath the dirt. Think about a time when you felt completely at peace. Maybe it was during a walk in nature, watching the waves of the ocean, or losing yourself in a piece of music. In those moments, your thoughts likely faded into the background. You weren't trying to be peaceful. You simply were. This is your natural state, and it's always available to you. The only thing standing in the way is the belief that you are the thinker of your thoughts instead of the awareness that observes them. Here's a truth that might surprise you. The mind doesn't like being quiet. It thrives on activity, constantly jumping from one thing to the next. That's why it's so tempting to pick up your phone when you're bored, to scroll endlessly, to fill every silence with sound. The mind fears stillness, because stillness reveals its true nature too. I believe this is undoubtedly true of every feeling, and ultimately not in control. But once you embrace stillness, even for a moment, the mind's grip begins to loosen. You start to see it as a tool, not a tyrant. Now you might wonder, if I'm not my thoughts, then who am I? This question has been asked by spiritual seekers and philosophers for centuries, and while the answers vary, they all point to the same realization: you are the awareness that notices. You are the quiet presence behind the noise, the unchanging space in which thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise. This awareness isn't bound by the past or the future. It doesn't judge or resist, it simply is. Let's explore this together. Close your eyes if you can, and bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. Notice how each breath comes naturally, without effort. Now, shift your attention to the awareness of your breath. Not the breath itself, but the knowing that you are breathing. This awareness is subtle but undeniable. It's the same awareness that has been with you since you were a child, watching as you grew, changed, and evolved. Since it hasn't aged, it hasn't wavered, it's the constant beneath all the movement of your life. The more you rest in this awareness, the more you'll notice a sense of ease and clarity. It's like stepping out of a crowded room into a quiet garden. The noise doesn't disappear, but it no longer overwhelms you. You begin to see thoughts as they truly are, temporary, like waves on the surface of the ocean, and just like waves, they can't disturb the depths. The ocean remains vast, still, and powerful, no matter how turbulent the surface becomes. This is who you are, the vastness, not the wave. As you practice observing your thoughts, you may notice patterns emerging. Certain thoughts will repeat themselves, tied to fears, desires, or memories. These patterns are like grooves worn into your mind by years of habit and conditioning. They're not easy to break, but the first step is awareness. When you see a pattern, name it. There's the voice telling me I'm not good enough. Or there's the voice telling me I'm not good enough. By naming the thought, you create a little distance from it. You remind yourself that it's just a thought, not the truth. This distance is powerful. It allows you to respond to life rather than react. When you're caught in a thought pattern, it's like being swept away by a strong current. But when you observe the pattern, you become the one standing on the shore, watching the current flow by. You're no longer at its mercy. You can choose how to engage or not engage, because you've reclaimed your power as the observer. Here's something important to understand. This practice doesn't mean you'll never experience negative thoughts or emotions. Life will still bring challenges, and the mind will still generate its stories. But the difference is, you won't be ruled by them. You'll have the tools to navigate them with grace and clarity. You'll know that even in the midst of chaos, the stillness of your awareness is always there, unshaken and unchanging. Imagine how this could transform your relationships. When someone says something hurtful, instead of reacting defensively, you can pause and notice the thoughts and emotions that arise. You can choose to respond from a place of understanding, rather than being driven by anger or pain. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you process them with awareness, allowing them to flow through you without clinging or resisting. Over time, this practice deepens your connections with others and brings a sense of peace to your interactions. And what about your relationship with yourself? When you stop identifying with every critical or doubtful thought, you make space for self-compassion. You start to see yourself as you truly are, not the sum of your thoughts or actions, but the awareness that holds them. This realization is profoundly healing. It allows you to let go of the need for perfection, to embrace your imperfections as part of the human experience. It frees you to live authentically without the constant burden of self-judgment. This journey isn't about escaping the mind, it's about understanding it. The mind is a beautiful tool, capable of incredible creativity and insight. But it's only a tool, not the master. When you remember this, you reclaim your true nature as the master of your inner world. You step into a place of power, peace, and presence. A place where you can navigate life's ups and downs with grace. Now, Let's look at what happens when you fully embrace this practice. As you deepen your awareness of thoughts and emotions, you begin to see life with fresh eyes. The world becomes less about the stories your mind creates and more about the richness of the present moment. Colors seem brighter, sounds clearer, and even the simplest experiences, the sip of water, the rustle of leaves, carry a sense of wonder. This isn't because life has changed, but because you've changed. You're no longer lost in mental noise. You're here, truly here. This state of presence is your natural state. It's not something you have to force or achieve. It's what remains when you let go of distractions. But make no mistake, letting go isn't always easy. The mind will resist, pulling you back into its stories. It will tell you that you need to worry, plan, and control. It will try to convince you that its voice is essential. But each time you observe without reacting, you weaken its hold. Over time, the voice becomes quieter, and the spaces of stillness grow larger. One of the most beautiful aspects of this practice is how it transforms your perception of time. When you're caught in thoughts, you're often living in the past or the future. You replay memories, analyze conversations, or worry about what's to come. But when you rest in awareness, time feels different. The past and future lose their grip, and all that remains is now. And in the now, life unfolds in its fullness. You're no longer rushing through moments to get somewhere else. You're fully immersed in each experience. This shift brings a profound sense of freedom. Without the constant pull of past regrets and future anxieties, you feel lighter, more expansive. You realize that most of the things you worried about were never real to begin with. They were shadows cast by the mind. And even the challenges you face become opportunities to practice presence. Instead of resisting pain or clinging to pleasure, you meet each moment with curiosity and openness. You start to trust life, knowing that you have the inner resources to handle whatever comes your way. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on this idea of trust. Trusting life doesn't mean you ignore reality or avoid responsibility. It means recognizing that life is dynamic, always changing, and that your greatest strength lies in your ability to adapt. When you trust life, you stop trying to control everything. You let go of the need to micromanage your circumstances, and instead, you align with the natural flow of existence. This doesn't make challenges disappear, but it does change how you face them. You become resilient, grounded, and unshakable. Think of a river flowing through a landscape. The water doesn't resist the rocks and bends in its path. It flows around them, adapting with grace. This is how life unfolds, when you release resistance and trust the process. You stop fighting against what is and start working with it. And in doing so, you discover a strength and flexibility you never knew you had. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. On the contrary, letting go of resistance allows you to act from a place of clarity and intention. When your mind is quiet, you can see situations more objectively. You're no longer reacting out of fear or habit. You're responding with wisdom and purpose. This is the paradox of surrender. By letting go, you gain true power. Power not to dominate, but to flow in harmony with life's ever-changing current. And here's the real gift of this practice. It reconnects you with the deeper essence of who you are. Beneath the thoughts, emotions, and roles you play, there is a presence that has always been there. This presence doesn't need to prove itself or achieve anything to be complete. It simply is. When you touch this presence, even briefly, you feel a sense of homecoming, a return to the truth of your being. This realization can be life-changing. You start to see that the things you once chased, success, approval, security, were never the source of fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from within, from being fully present and connected to the flow of life. This doesn't mean you stop pursuing goals or dreams. It means you approach them from a place of wholeness rather than lack. You're no longer striving to fill a void. You're expressing the fullness of who you already are. Let's consider how this manifests in everyday life. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and the usual frustration begins to bubble up. Instead of reacting, you pause and notice the thoughts driving the frustration. I'm going to be late. This is so unfair. You observe the thoughts without judgment, and in that moment, something shifts. The frustration loses its intensity, and you find yourself settling into a sense of acceptance. The traffic hasn't changed, but your relationship with it has. This is the power of presence. It transforms not the situation, but your experience of it. Now apply this to larger challenges. Maybe you're facing uncertainty at work, a conflict in a relationship, or a personal loss. The mind wants to fixate on what's wrong, to replay scenarios and anticipate outcomes. But when you ground yourself in awareness, you find the strength to meet these challenges with grace. You stop resisting what's happening and start working with it. And in doing so, you often discover solutions that eluded you when you were caught in mental loops. This practice is not about escaping life. It's about embracing it fully. When you're no longer consumed by thoughts, you can engage with the world from a place of authenticity and compassion. You become more present with the people around you, more attentive to their needs and feelings. You bring a sense of calm and stability to your relationships, which in turn deepens your connections. And as you cultivate this presence, you inspire others to do the same. As you deepen this practice, you'll notice that life itself begins to feel lighter. The challenges, while still present, no longer consume you. The fleeting joys of life feel richer because you're fully present for them, not distracted by what's next or what might go wrong. And the beauty of it all is that this presence, this profound awareness, has been with you all along. You're not learning something new, you're simply remembering what it means to truly be. Think for a moment about the stories we carry. Stories about who we are, what we've been through, and what we're capable of. These stories are powerful, shaping our beliefs and our actions. But have you ever stopped to ask, who am I without my story? Strip away the labels, the roles, the expectations, and what remains. This is where true freedom lies. Not in changing the story, but in realizing that you're not bound by it. You're the awareness in which the story unfolds, not the story itself. When you let go of identifying with your story, a sense of spaciousness arises. You begin to see that your worth isn't tied to your achievements, failures, or the opinions of others. It's intrinsic, unchanging, and whole. This realization is transformative. It frees you to live authentically, to express yourself without fear, and to embrace life in all its complexity. You stop striving to be someone or something and start simply being. This shift doesn't mean you'll never face challenges or discomfort, but it does mean you'll approach them with a newfound strength. When you're rooted in awareness, you become like a tree with deep roots. The winds of life may shake you, but they can't uproot you. You stand firm, grounded in the truth of who you are. And this grounding has a ripple effect. As you cultivate presence in your own life, you naturally bring it into the lives of those around you. Your calm becomes a source of calm for others. Your clarity inspires clarity, and your openness invites others to show up as their true selves. This is how transformation spreads, not through force, but through the quiet power of presence. So how do you begin? Start small. The next time you feel overwhelmed, pause and take a deep breath. Notice the thought or emotion that's arising, and simply observe it. Don't judge it, fight it, or cling to it. Just let it be. This simple act of awareness is the doorway to freedom. It reminds you that you're not the thought, not the emotion. You're the space in which it appears and disappears. Another practice is to set aside a few minutes each day to simply sit in stillness. Close your eyes, focus on your breath, and notice whatever arises. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Just gently bring your attention back to your breath. Over time, this practice will strengthen your ability to observe without reacting, to listen without identifying, And as you go about your day, bring this awareness into your everyday moments. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground as you walk, the taste of your food as you eat, the sound of birds outside your window. These small acts of mindfulness ground you in the present and remind you of the beauty in the here and now. As you practice, you'll find that the voice in your head grows quieter, not because you've silenced it, but because you've stopped giving it your full attention. You've shifted your focus from the noise of the mind to the stillness of awareness. And in that stillness, you find the peace you've been seeking all along. This isn't a destination, it's a journey. There will be moments when the mind takes over again, when old patterns resurface, and that's okay. Each moment is an opportunity to begin anew, to return to presence. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until awareness is no longer something you do, it's simply who you are. So ask yourself, what would life look like if you lived from this place of awareness? How would your relationships change? How would you approach challenges? How would you experience joy? The answers lie not in the mind, but in the practice. And the practice begins now. Take a deep breath. Feel the air filling your lungs, the gentle rhythm of your body in motion. Notice the stillness that surrounds you, the space in which this moment unfolds. This is your true nature, calm, expansive, and free. And it's always here, waiting for you to remember. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind it all, and in this awareness lies the freedom to live fully, to love deeply, and to embrace life as it is. The voice in your head will always be there, but now you know the truth. You're not the voice, you're the listener. And in this listening, you find your liberation.